Bernie, AOC, Mandani are not Democrats. They'll be the first to tell you that. They're democratic socialists, and that's a very different thing, and I don't think people know that yet. I don't think people realize we already have a lot of socialism.
Bernie Sanders, AOC, and their circle aren't Democrats in the traditional sense. They'll tell you themselves they're democratic socialists. And that distinction matters more than most people realize. Because while Democrats sell reform within capitalism, democratic socialists sell a fundamentally different system. And voters do feel that difference, even if they can't always articulate it.
James Carville knew how to win, and he blamed the Democratic losses this November 2nd on stupid wokeness, to which AOC fired back that wokeness is a term almost exclusively used by older people these days. So that should tell you all you need to know. What? This is a term folks like you brought out very recently and had been proudly displaying at every march since. Just last year, The Guardian declared woke the word of our era. I guess they didn't get the memo from the Mean Girls Club. We don't use that emoji anymore. Woke, please. We say fetch now.
James Carville blamed recent Democratic losses on what he bluntly called stupid wokeness. AOC fired back, saying woke is a term only older people use now, which is hilarious because the same activists were proudly waving it around at every rally just last year. Apparently, the word didn't age well, so now it's fetch.
Democratic socialism is like a dating profile. Things look great until you meet up in the real world. For example, Bernie Sanders, his big thing was always bringing single-payer health care to our country of 340 million. But when liberal, tie-dyed Vermont tried to do it for a population of 626,000, it collapsed like that poor in the Oval Office last week.
Bill Maher cuts through the noise with one inconvenient truth. America already has a lot of socialism. Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, food stamps, unemployment insurance, veterans benefits, farm subsidies, corporate bailouts, even the Pentagon Jobs Program. The argument isn't whether socialism exists, it's how much more voters are willing to tolerate.
I don't think people realize we already have a lot of socialism. Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, unemployment insurance, food stamps, veterans benefits, Pell Grants, COVID-era payments, farm subsidies, disability payments, Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, corporate bailouts, and the jobs program that is building weapons the Pentagon doesn't even want. All that is socialism.
Bernie Sanders built his brand on single-payer health care for 340 million Americans. But when Deep Blue Vermont tried it for just 626,000 people, the system collapsed. Maher uses this as the ultimate reality check. Ideas that sound heroic on paper don't always survive contact with reality.
The DSA are radicals about this concept, and radical economic policy is always ineluctably married to radical social policy. Their platform, for example, calls for completely open borders. They're for what Biden was doing, but more. You think you're going to win an election on that? This just seems like more extremism at a time when Americans are begging both parties, please, could just one of you act normal?
Maher argues that the words democratic socialist alone are enough to spook moderate voters. Even when Bernie or AOC soften policies, the label triggers fears of government overreach. It energizes a loyal base, but narrows national appeal. Elections aren't won with devotion alone. They're won with trust.
It's either defund the police or military in the streets. Either MAGA's crypto crony capitalism or city-run grocery stores. No, I don't want that. I want a Democrat who reassures me if you like your Whole Foods, you can keep your Whole Foods.
Here's Maher's key warning. Radical economic policy always drags radical social policy with it. Open borders, defund rhetoric, extreme activist demands. At a time when Americans are begging both parties to just act normal, the DSA offers more extremism.
Governor-elect Spanberger once said about Biden's presidency that, quote, nobody elected him to be FDR. They elected him to be normal. Normal! You know, at this year's DSA convention, or as it's commonly known, Comic-Con, get this, you had to submit a photo of a negative COVID test to get in. In 2025. Yeah, no one wants to do that again. We've had enough of Trump's macho and also enough of politics.
Maher says voters aren't hostile. They're scared. Immigration chaos, inflation, government spending already feel overwhelming. So when people imagine democratic socialists in charge, Biden suddenly looks moderate. That fear keeps Bernie and AOC boxed into their progressive corner.
These democratic socialists at another of their conventions, they were told to make jazz hands instead of clapping, lest some delegates suffer sensory overload. And also, and I'm not joking, they were told not to be wearing, any aggressive scents.
Please don't go into that space with anything that's like an aggressive scent, for instance, right? Because that's going to be difficult for people.
Oh, for sake. This.
Maher makes his values clear. He supports capitalism, not because it's perfect, but because it gives people agency, choice, accountability, innovation. In his view, socialism concentrates power, dulls ambition, and shrinks freedom. And that belief still resonates deeply with the American middle class.
This is who the Democrats are thinking of following. Chuck Schumer ain't perfect, but at least he doesn't crumple into a heap when confronted with Chanel No. 5. You may now clap in the traditional way. Thank you very much.
Maher criticizes Bernie and AOC for riding activist energy instead of leading it. At rallies, they echo chants instead of shaping a broader message. When activists accuse them of not going far enough, they react instead of asserting authority. That doesn't look like leadership. It looks like surrender.
Why is the party that supports so many issues that benefit the middle class still considered out of touch by 62% of Americans? In plain English, nobody likes a snob. Hillary Clinton didn't have anyone on rural research or outreach when she ran in 2016 until the race tightened just before the election. Then they hired one. And where was his office? Brooklyn. True story. Politics is local, not locally sourced. It's not artisan. It's art and stand.
Then comes the infamous moment. At a DSA convention, attendees were told to use jazz hands instead of clapping to avoid sensory overload. Also no aggressive sense. Maher's point is brutal. Real leaders should challenge absurdity, not normalize it, because most voters are quietly cringing.
James Carville knew how to win, and he blamed the Democratic losses this November 2nd on stupid wokeness, to which AOC fired back that wokeness is a term almost exclusively used by older people these days. So that should tell you all you need to know. What? This is a term folks like you brought out very recently and had been proudly displaying at every march since. Just last year, The Guardian declared woke the word of our era. I guess they didn't get the memo from the Mean Girls Club. We don't use that emoji anymore. Woke, please. We say.
Maher closes with a bigger picture. Democrats support many middle-class policies, yet 62% of Americans still see them as out of touch. Why? Because nobody likes a snob. Politics is local, not performative. When ideology replaces practicality, voters walk away, and elections are lost long before Election Day.